Hello, and welcome to Timing is Everything, a show of Care Dimensions, formerly Hospice of the North Shore in Greater Boston. My name is Mary Crowe, Education Specialist at Care Dimensions. Today, our guests are Sheryl Meehan, Director of Volunteer Services and Complementary Therapies at Care Dimension, and Nancy Usher, who's one of the fabulous volunteers at Care Dimensions. Welcome to the show, Sheryl and Nancy.
Well, thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. So, Sheryl, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you stated, I am the Director of Volunteer Services and Complementary Therapies at Care Dimensions. I have actually been in the medical arena for approximately 12 years, but about 8 years ago found my passion, which is hospice.
Excellent, excellent. Nancy, tell us about yourself.
I'm a retired English teacher. I've been retired for 19 years now. I previously taught 5th grade, waiting for an opening so that I could get into the junior high level. And after 3 years, that opening appeared and I applied. I've taught English, and for 5 years I was a special needs teacher, mostly with emotionally disturbed boys, and something that I enjoyed very, very much. And now I'm a volunteer for hospice, and I have been for the past 7 years.
7 years, wow, that's great. Yeah. That's wonderful. Sheryl, tell us about the volunteer program at Care Dimensions and what that looks like.
I feel that we have probably one of the most robust volunteer programs within hospice, definitely on the East Coast. It's very extensive. We have approximately 400 volunteers, and they do a myriad of different volunteer opportunities, whether it's working in the office, whether it's working directly with our patient care. It could be basically dealing with our patients with sitting respite, things on that nature. It could be working with them in our various different programs. We have the Vigil Volunteer Program, which is sitting at bedside with patients that are actively dying. We have our threshold singers who actually sing at bedside for our patients.
Nice.
We have veteran-to-veteran volunteers who actually work with our veterans. Our veterans very often have issues at end of life because of their service, and being able to communicate with another brother or sister really eases a lot of the stress that they go through near end of life. We have our Lavender group, which has gone through extensive training for cultural diversity, and especially with the LGBT program.
LGBT, so lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender.
Yes.
Well, yes. That's wonderful that there's that diversity.
Well, at Care Dimensions, we really truly feel that we have to support everyone. We're there for anyone and everyone. We don't want anyone to die alone.
Excellent, excellent. So, Nancy, what are the types of things that you've done at Care Dimensions as a volunteer?
Personally, I've done almost everything that Sheryl has mentioned. I have sat vigils for end-of-life situations. I have visited patients in long-term care facilities. I've visited patients at home. I have taken patients to their doctor's appointments. I've worked in the office doing clerical work, items that free up the professionals to do their job. And I have been a part of a 4-member team that does a virtual dementia training for new volunteers and for all the staff. And what this program does is to introduce these folks to what it might be like to have dementia. It's an exciting program, one that I'm very much in favor of, and I thoroughly enjoy doing.
That's great.
I've also done food shopping for patients that can't get out. So, you know, I've dabbled in a lot of things, but you must remember, I don't do this every week. I do it over the period of the 7 years I've been a volunteer.
Yeah, and 7 years is a long time. It's wonderful that you've gotten to do such a variety. I think that sometimes people don't understand that there's so many different things that you can do. I think that they think there's just one task that all volunteers do, and that's not the case at all from what you two are describing.
Absolutely. Volunteers really are a component of hospice that you've got to remember hospice actually started out as an all-volunteer organization, and gradually it grew into the process that we have today, which is the IDT team philosophy, which is the interdisciplinary team. And volunteers are an integral part of that team. So they are well trained and they do an awful lot of the care that is over and above the clinical care that hospice gives to their patients. So we're an added benefit to our patients and their loved ones. And we're very, very proud of our volunteers. They're very dedicated, very committed, but we also have to make sure that our volunteers don't give too much, because it is very seductive work. What's more important than in your life making a difference to someone at end of life and their loved ones?
You know, I wanted to talk about that some more because, you know, volunteerism is such an important thing to do. You know, so, you know, why do you think volunteering is so important?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to the recipient, but I also feel it's important to the volunteer. The volunteer, we all do things because we gain something from it, and that's not to sound selfish. It's basically a need that we have within ourselves, and this is a perfect need that you want to give to others. You want to make a difference in someone else's life, and I think that it's been proven that volunteering extends your life. Volunteering actually enhances the quality of life. And the one amazing thing about hospice, and this is why I'm so thrilled with it, is that hospice, for those of us who work in this field, reminds us to enjoy the moment, to know and appreciate the interaction we have with others, because you never know when that may not be there.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So, Nancy, tell us some more too, like the impact of, again, the volunteers have both, again, on the person that you're doing the volunteer service for and also for oneself.
It's immeasurable when you go to visit with a patient, or you just take a patient to a doctor's appointment and you get the chance to talk with them. They know that you care about them. They know they're not alone or forgotten or isolated. And I think that's very important for people to understand and to feel. For the volunteers' perspective, I think that I personally have learned so much. The training that I have received through Care Dimensions, their programs, and I kind of gravitated towards the dementia training. I enjoy being with patients that suffer from dementia, and I have learned how to approach them and to look at life not through my reality, but through their reality, and that's very important. You know, at some point in time, we all are going to be impacted by someone in our family or close to us with dementia, and knowing how to approach them and how to make them comfortable in their setting, I think is very important.
I think people underestimate, again, the impact, because you're talking about, you know, certainly the specialty in terms of working with individuals with Alzheimer's or other dementias, and also the impact that you can still have. So first of all, sometimes people think that because somebody might have that type of an advanced illness that we're not able to make a connection, and what you're talking about is quite different, about how meaningful that interaction can still be. And I can tell by the way you're talking that you've been impacted by that interaction as well.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, and that's really important. You know, but it just, and you're also, by the way you're both talking is, again, I think, again, people think so narrowly about volunteers. You're talking about you can do direct patient visits, or for some people that don't want to do that, there's other things that they can do. You're also talking, Nancy, about different settings that people go in. You know, so again, this is something that it sounds like, again, there's so much variety that can happen from this.
Well, I think people have to remember that we as hospice individuals really go wherever the patient calls home. And that's important to remember. It's not only a hospital, it's not only a hospice house, it's not only a home. It's wherever that patient may be and wherever those loved ones may be. We're there for them.
Sure, yeah. It sounds like you've been impacted. We're going to talk more about that too, because again, this is so important about, you know, how this affects us. You know, there's been so much research again on volunteerism, and you talked about this, Sheryl, about that that it's shown to have health benefits. You know, that it's something that you not only give, but that you get in return, and how rewarding that is, how it adds to life satisfaction, it promotes well-being for both parties.
Yeah, most
You know?
definitely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And we have so many different types of volunteering opportunities, whether it's pet therapy, whether it's singing, whether it's doing life review. I mean, if you have an interest, music, whatever it is, there's a place for you in hospice, and especially with hospice volunteering.
Yeah, and you know, I'll ask this as we're coming up too, because again, we're going to talk about just in terms of time commitments, things like that, and you know, and we'll talk more about that. But you know, so you talked about again these different areas and all of that. Do people have to do all of them? Because Nancy, you're talking about, you know, you've done everything, you know, but do they have to?
The one wonderful thing about volunteering is that when you actually go through the training, I always say, I know I have done my job right when you're able to say no. Because again, they're volunteers. This is their time that they're so generously giving. And they have a life, and we want to make sure that they protect that life, that they take care of themselves and do what makes them feel good, because that's the only way they're going to be an asset to our patients and their loved ones.
Yeah. So it's good self-care, which enhances that volunteer part, right? But also, and again, I hear this so often in terms of people making a comment about, I'm just a volunteer. There's no such thing as just a volunteer. This is really important.
And they say just a volunteer, and they also say just sitting there.
Yes.
But what is more important than honoring and respecting someone who is at the end of their journey or is dealing with an advanced illness, to say, I'm here for you. You let me know what we want to do during this time period. How many times does anyone ever have that control that they can decide what they want to do, how they want to do it, and when they want to do it? And our volunteers address that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, you know, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk more about the volunteer program.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I have worked in a lot of different settings, and I have never seen the care, love, and support that I've experienced with Care Dimensions.
Because it's about the patient's quality of life.
We provide care during one of the most challenging times in a family's life.
One of the things that we really focus on is how people want to live their life.
We have transformed the way our community experiences end-of-life care. It is more than hospice. It is care for advanced illness.
At Care Dimensions, we'll take care of your family like you're a part of ours.
So welcome back to Timing is Everything. Today we're here with Sheryl Meehan and Nancy Usher to discuss volunteer services at Care Dimensions. So I want to get back, Nancy, I want to ask you this question. So what brought you to volunteer services at Care Dimensions?
Well, my late husband was under hospice care, and I saw the wonderful, compassionate care that he received, and I thought, you know, I need to give back. I need to give this to other people because it was given to us as a gift. And so I signed up, I called, and went through the training process. And I have found in talking with other volunteers, that's the exact same reason that they would give. I want to give back. And there's certainly a very good feeling about giving back to the community. You're not only helping yourself, but you're helping others. And that's a pretty special feeling.
So there's that personal reason that might bring somebody to it. Sheryl, are there other reasons what you found that have brought people to doing the volunteer services at Care Dimensions?
Absolutely. The majority of our volunteers do come because somehow, some way they were touched by hospice. However, then we may have other people who just have an interest in end of life or advanced illness. We have students, we have engineers, we have stay-at-home moms, we have stay-at-home fathers, we have a myriad from 18. Our oldest volunteer happens to be 94,
Wow.
and he has more energy than I will ever have in my life. He's amazing, and he truly enjoys it. Our biggest problem with him happens to be the fact that, again, we're concerned, we want to make sure that everybody takes time off.
Yep.
So we have to say no to him quite often because he calls and he always says, what else can I do? What else can I do?
that
Because
wonderful?
he gets that wonderful feeling that he's making a difference at his age. And he always says that, and I say, I wish I had his energy.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Absolutely.
So what is the age range?
From 18 to 94.
Okay, so, and is 18 the youngest that one
18
could?
is the youngest because we are mandated to actually do background checks. Every single check that an employee goes through when they are a new hire, we are mandated that we must also do that for our volunteers. It's for the protection of our patients because they're a very vulnerable population, but it's also protection for everybody else within hospice, that we know we have the highest quality of people that truly care and want to make a difference.
So tell us more about, so what does somebody have to do to become a volunteer?
First of all, either call or come in to Care Dimensions,
Okay.
look on our website, get some additional information. They can call the main number, they can fill out an application, and the application only means that you're interested in finding out more. Or they can call me directly, Sheryl Meehan, at 978-750-9321, and we'll give them information regarding the volunteer process, what we have to do, depending on the type of volunteering. As I said before, depending on it, may be an orientation, 2 hours, 4 hours, or 6 hours.
Yep.
Or if they really want to work directly with our patients, it's a much more intensive training, and that is a 3-hour segment once a week for 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the criteria. Plus, we also do the specialized trainings for those that are really interested in delving in further.
So the specialties being?
Veteran to veteran, LGBT training, it can be the vigil training, and numerous others.
Dementia support,
Dementia
all of those
support,
that you
absolutely.
talked about. So that is a really very good training. I mean, that's extensive.
I think that the volunteers find out a lot about hospice. They find out a lot about their true feelings about death and the dying process. They also find out their feelings about the patient and what the patient is going through, and they really understand more the process, how our patients may be actively grieving before anything happens. They're looking forward to actually supporting those patients because they learn the skill sets that they've probably already had, but now they understand they have
You're
them.
bringing that out in them, which I think is so important that people feel, because again, in volunteer work, you want to feel well equipped too.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like that you do. You ready people to feel well equipped to go out there to do this, which is really important.
We do, and I always say that volunteering within hospice and actually working within hospice, we're ordinary people who are making an extraordinary difference in the quality of life for those who need us most. And we all are ordinary. We all have the skills, but to be able to fine-tune them, and then also to know where your particular interest is, and to try to focus in on that avenue so that it's a win-win situation for everybody involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's excellent. Nancy, what has impacted you most being a volunteer? And it might not be one thing.
No, there are
So
many things.
tell-
You know, going in and visiting with patients, sometimes you don't even talk with them. You're just there for them. They perhaps don't want to talk. In some cases, they can't talk. And you just sit there, you rub their shoulder, hold their hand. Other times, I have gone in with a patient, I am thinking particularly of a 90-year-old, and we colored. And we had a wonderful time coloring. And she just knew that I was there for her. And that's important, you know, to a patient. We've done jigsaw puzzles, we've done sing-alongs, and I just find that it's so rewarding for me to see a smile on somebody's face. And when you get up to leave and they look at you and they say, God bless you, There's not a greater feeling in the world.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people, again, underestimate the power. You know, you were saying about sometimes not even saying a word. Our presence is so powerful. It's so significant. It's such a critical time in life, right? To be able to be present. What an honor, right?
It is.
You know, that people welcome you in to be a part of that process, but to be able to be present. Sometimes I feel like we think we have to be like a one-person activity committee, and it's not what it's about, is it?
Not at all.
No,
Not at all.
Yeah.
And when you mention an honor, sitting with a vigil with patients at the end of their life, I find that to be a very big honor.
Yeah.
You know, to be there with them so that they are not alone.
Yeah.
And you tell them, you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing that can compare
Sure.
with it.
Yeah, again, that it's such a personal, intimate time to have people welcome in, you know, you in to be a part of that journey is so significant, you know, and it's so I certainly, you know, can feel the passion that you have towards what you've done.
And from my point of view, it's taught me that it's not a bad thing to be dying.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Sometimes people have a fear and don't want to talk about it.
Right.
But it's not a bad thing.
Right. Well, it kind of normalizes it, you know. We're all going to get there. You know, this is a part of life that we'll all have to do this at some point. And again, you know, certainly in the hospice work, we know that we want to make that part of life as quality filled and dignified as possible. And I certainly believe that the volunteers play a very big role in that.
They absolutely do, and I'm really impressed that while volunteering was actually the start, we have been mandated to continue that volunteer process, and we've been very blessed. Medicare requires a hospice to have, of all the clinical hours performed, an additional 5% of those clinical hours must be through volunteers.
Okay.
At Care Dimensions, we're very blessed by the volunteers that we have, and we actually last year averaged 10.53%,
Wow.
which is a dramatic
Yeah.
amount of quality to support for our patients and their
Wow.
loved ones.
Well, it's doubling what is in terms of regulatory, and again, so it's beyond that, right? It means so much more, obviously.
It absolutely does, but that figure just reinforces the fact that so many people care to make a difference. So many people actually feel gratified and know that they're making a difference when it's a very important time in someone's life.
Absolutely. Nancy, if there's a message that you want to get out to community members, to the audience about, again, volunteering, the impact, what it means, what would it be?
Well, I think the question that I am most frequently asked is when people ask me, do I volunteer? Why do I volunteer? And I'll tell them because it's such a rewarding thing. They'll say, well, isn't it very depressing? And I give them an unequivocal, absolutely not. It is not a depressing thing. When you go in and you sit with a patient, and again, as I said earlier, you don't have to even interact with them, just sit with them. If they want to hold hands, you hold their hand. That's all they need, is that personal contact with another human being. And it's important that they know that you care.
Absolutely.
And that's what I would like people on the outside to know, that there are so many folks that feel isolated, left out of the mainstream, and that we need to go in and tell them you're not forgotten.
Right. Yeah.
And you still amount to something.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so important for the volunteers too, because they're receiving the unconditional love that they're giving. And that's an amazing feeling, amazing feeling.
How about ongoing support for the volunteers?
We actually have ongoing support for the volunteers. We not only have meetings to either discuss what our volunteers may be feeling, we have educational series, and also the one thing that really impresses me is that because we're an interdisciplinary team, we support one another. And there are times when a volunteer may get fairly close to a patient, and they may be actively grieving also. And so we have our bereavement department, our chaplains, our social workers, there if they're ever needed. But the main thing that really impresses me is that our volunteers most often feel this person died when they were supposed to die. I was there to help them. I made the difference. And they feel maybe sad for a few moments or sad for a little bit of time, but they also have that feeling that I made a difference when it counted most.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling.
Absolutely. And again, that ongoing support, it's so important, right? Whether we're a healthcare professional, a volunteer, again, everyone grieves, you know, but it's important that people have that continued support because it enables us to continue to do this powerful work. And it's the same with volunteers.
Along the lines that Sheryl's talking, I was with a patient that I had visited on many occasions. And I went back this one afternoon because I thought, I just need to be with her. I don't know why, but I do. And I went in, and she was, for all intents and purposes, asleep. And I held her hand, and I told her, I'm here today with you again. I said, you're not alone. I said, and it's okay. And she died. And after I checked in with the nurse, got the nurse up there and all, I called hospice. And the very first thing the coordinator said to me was, how are you doing?
Oh, isn't that nice?
You know,
yeah.
And you know, because as you say,
we care.
You care, yeah, and we appreciate that as volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a mutual love fest.
That's good.
You know, we know that our volunteers are very, very special people. They're ordinary people who are utilizing their skills to make a difference, and they're very special. They're very compassionate, caring, loving individuals, and I have learned so much from our volunteers. I think truly anyone that actually works within hospice, every day you learn and every day you become a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've had the good fortune of having being involved with many of the volunteers and just feel blessed by the assistance and the camaraderie and all of that I've had too in that regard. It's just amazing, and it's just something that I'll never forget. So,
and I think it's important that you have to remember there's a lot of happiness.
Absolutely, yeah.
And laughter in hospice, which people don't realize.
Absolutely, they don't. Yeah, they have a misconception about that. Tell us, Sheryl, how can somebody become a volunteer in terms of how they reach you again? Let's just make sure that they know what to do if they're interested, they want to get a hold of you.
Well, they can go on the Care Dimensions website. There's a portal. Basically, they can find out information on all of our different programs, what we do, how we do. They find out information about the trainings, but also they can call Care Dimensions, ask for the volunteer department, or they can call me directly, Sheryl Meehan, 978-750-9321, and I would be thrilled to speak to each and every one of them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I can't thank you both enough for being on the show today. And again, we thank you for tuning in to Timing is Everything, and we look forward to having time with you during our next show. I'm Mary Crowe. Thank you.